Welcome everyone to episode 20 of Kerbal Space Program First Contract. Now do not adjust your sets. You are seeing an SSTO spaceplane. Now Bill and Bob are in the cockpit and they have been training furiously for this day. Now it's early morning, so we have the OK, the green to go. So let's close off the additional intakes that we plan to use later in the flight. You'll notice they say open intake if you click on them now. Let's get the T key on, the SAS on. We have 4 SAS units to keep us going straight. And let's light up our jet engines. Up the throttle. Release the brakes and go for this inaugural flight. Now when we get up to about 100 meters per second, we should just be able to lift the nose. Lift the nose. There we go, lift the nose and we're away. Now the sooner we get up to 10,000 feet the better. Let's get the gear in. And away we go. Now the first part of the flight is pretty straightforward. Straight up to about 10 or 11,000 feet when we cross over into the middle part of the atmosphere. And throughout this middle part of the atmosphere, it's basically a case of get as much speed as absolutely possible. Now the one thing we do have to bear in mind and take extra care about is air intake, which is why we've covered this plane with air intakes, because that is what we are going to run out of first. But not until we're at least in the top half of the atmosphere. So let's keep an eye on that setting and let's keep an eye on our height. We'll get Kerbal engineer up so that we can check on our apoapsis. That's our final highest point of flight, and that's what we want to get up to, about 75,000 feet eventually, mostly with jets, we hope. Now let's begin to turn her over. Getting up to 12.5, 13,000 feet. We're well into the middle part of the atmosphere now. And it really is just a case now of building up our speed. Now one thing we are going to have to manage is our thrust, which at the moment is going up as we ram more and more air into our air intakes. But eventually we will start to run out of atmosphere. And that is where we're going to hit our additional air intakes. Now at the moment, because the air intakes are off, we're getting less drag. But soon we'll want more air to keep the thrust up. And we're getting a few re-entry effects, so we're building speed nicely. An orbital speed of over 2,000 meters per second is what we're targeting. And notice the thrust is beginning to come down. Let's just get our nose up a little bit. We don't want to lose any altitude. We're a little bit too low. There we go. We're starting to go back up again. Still gaining velocity. That's what we're after. Now thrust is fairly steady and it's fairly even across both engines, but when the thrust drops dramatically, we'll find that one engine starts taking all of the oxygen and the other engine will desync and will start to spin, and that is when we're going to hit our additional air intakes. Still gaining a lot of height. Still have more than enough air at the moment, even though thrust is slowly dropping. gaining altitude rapidly, that's good. We're gaining time to apoapsis, which also is very good. Now you can see that thrust is beginning to drop rapidly, so let's put on our extra air intakes. Nice jump in our air intake value. Let's keep at about 10 or so degrees because it's speed we really want. We're getting up to 1400. Now the next trick we have up our sleeve is just to reduce the throttle. That will reduce the demand for air and should keep the two engines balanced. So as long as we're gaining speed and gaining altitude, we're happy. Our thrust is dropping rapidly now as we're starting to get up to the top end of the middle part of the atmosphere. So we need to keep a close eye on our thrust. Still gaining speed, still gaining altitude. All good so far. Engines are still in sync. Bill and Bob appear in control. Now if you listen carefully, you'll also hear the sound of the engines dropping, and the colour of the engine exhaust also darkens, so you get quite a few cues in order to manage your thrust. Now there we go, rapidly dropping, so just kill the engines for a second and then throttle back up again. And that's when we dropped over into the top half of the atmosphere. So we're building thrust again. Stars are starting to come out. Thrust lower a little, just keep them in sync. Again, as long as we're gaining speed and altitude, we're happy. So they're still in sync. Starting to desync, so we drop the throttle a little bit more. A little bit more. A little bit more, keep them in sync. We're getting up almost to an orbital height. Just drop a little bit more. Now when the thrust gets really low, as it is now, a slight desynchronization is not a problem. SAS can keep that in hand. Drop the throttle a little bit more, and you'll see that we're almost got an apoapsis now in orbit. Engines are slightly out of sync, but SAS is keeping that in control. And here we go, we're almost out of the atmosphere. Here we go. There we are, we've now got, and there's the engines have died, I think. I don't think we're going to get any more out of them, maybe a little smidgen more. Because we want to get as high as we can, because we're still in the atmosphere. We could still, there we go, and it's flame out. But even that one, I'm now running on one engine because SAS is able to keep control, and we're now easily into the atmosphere, and we have 5.5, almost 6 minutes to apoapsis. So let's kill the engines now. So kill the throttle, close the air intakes we don't need, switch off the engines, and then arm arm the rocket, arm the rocket. So let's go to, look at that, we've almost got a complete orbit. Brilliant. Let's just center on Kerbal and just set up our maneuver node. There we go, periapsis 28. '74, '76. Bring it back a little. 74, 76. 75, 74 should be perfect. So let's get ourselves onto our manoeuvre node. And let's admire the view. Marvellous. I think we should send proof, if ever proof were needed, back to KSC that we know what we're doing. Of course we know what we're doing. Okay. Right. Well, we are still in the atmosphere. We're losing a tiny bit of apoapsis height, but that's only because of the tiny amount of drag that we're under right now. But I think Bill and Bob are very much in control. So another postcard back to the office. While we wait for our manoeuvre node, which will be in 3 minutes and 40 seconds. So it's 25-second burn, so we go on about the 13-second. And it'll just be a quick burst of our rocket engine. So let's just speed up time a little as we approach apoapsis. Now, you'll remember there are two reasons we're doing this journey. One is to put up a satellite, or you could say there's three. One is to put up a satellite using an SSTO. There's two reasons. But third, to use the satellite to satisfy a contract whilst also helping us prepare for our asteroid. Now, you could argue that's four, but nobody said I could count. And there we are. We are now in orbit. So 2 minutes to go. And we get the soothing space music. Proof, if proof were needed, that we at least got the SSTO into space. Not to say we're going to be able to get it back down. Landing is by far the harder part. So let's just speed up time a little and get round to the 13 seconds to go. Here we are, coming down on a minute. Let's just make sure we're all lined up. Use our other hotkey, number 9, to get out our bunny ears. A very happy SSTO. 27 seconds. 20. Now using the Z key, we'll just maximise the throttle. There we are. Change of camera means we've now got periapsis. There we go. That should be 73 and 76. That's good enough. We are in orbit. Fantastic. That's, well, about 1/3, a good third of the program. That being, get the SSTO into space. Brilliant. So, let's do the second part. Now, the second part is to launch our little satellite. Now, this is the little satellite that we built and used, well, we used the sub-assemblies module to get it from the vehicle assembly building to the spaceplane hangar, and then we plopped it in here. So let's decouple the node, and it just bounces out there. It's going to bounce on the end there, like so. But now we'll use our RCS thrusters in docking mode just to push the ship away from the satellite. There we go. Let's get a shot for KSC. And now let's use the bracket to move to our new satellite. Let's just deploy the panels because we're using an ion engine, and ion engines are very, very power hungry. So we've got panels for when we are in the light, and we have the addition of these radio isotope thermoelectric generators for when we're in the dark. So, satellite deployed, and we will come back to that a little bit later. So let's get back over to our shuttle, just close up the bay. And we are now ready for descent. But I think we will leave that little bit of excitement for the next episode. I wouldn't want you to be too excited with this journey into space. So with that, I'd like you to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.